Hello, this is the second part of my descriptive writing video. Check it out. My dear viewers, as usual, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet by clicking the subscribe button. And if you like the content of my video, please click the like button and please share this video with your friends. In this video, we will cover the types of descriptive essays, followed by the planning of the body, and then how to write elaboration, as well as making sentences more descriptive. In English, there is a saying that goes, "Look before you leap." It means you need to be careful before you do something. The same thing with writing essays. Before you start writing descriptive essays, you need to carefully choose your question. Why? Because it will determine whether the essay is easy or challenging for you. This is because there are more than one types of descriptive writing. How many are there, do you think? For the purpose of this video, I have divided descriptive writing into three different types. The first one is descriptive narrative. The second one is descriptive expository. And the third one is descriptive factual. First, let's look at descriptive narrative. What is descriptive narrative? As the name suggests, the word narrative means stories. So basically it is a story, but not really the narrative question. It is a descriptive question, but the question asks you to tell stories. Confusing? Don't worry, we'll go through slowly. So how do we identify descriptive narrative? First, it has plot. Remember, this is a story, so it has to have plot. Plot is sequence of events. Aturan peristiwa-peristiwa. What happened? Okay, first thing this happened, and then what is the next thing that happened? Okay, that's what we call plot. And then the keywords in the question, you will find a problem and how to solve it. However, it is not necessarily mentioned in all questions. Sometimes the question, the way it is worded tells us that there should be a problem and how to solve it. All right? And then also it often asks you to describe your experience. Most narrative, if not all, always ask your experience. Now, why don't we take a look at an example of descriptive narrative question? So here is our first example. It's from SPM 2019. Write about the first day you met your best friend. Describe where you were and how you began talking to each other. Explain how your friendship has developed since that time. So let's try to analyze this question. So is plot required to answer this question? Well, you see, the first day you met your best friend, and then how your friendship has developed since that time. You see, there is, there are events mentioned here, right? Peristiwa, right? It starts with how you met the best friend, and then how it has developed, right? So is it getting better or is it getting worse, right? So it has plot, sequence of events. Next, is there a problem that needs a solution in this question? Well, we see, even though in the question itself does not mention the word problem and solution, but you see here where you were and how you began talking to each other. You don't simply talk to people, don't you? Usually there is something that happened. Maybe you lost something and you're looking for something and you have to talk to people. So that's a problem, right? So here, okay, there is a problem and a solution. And let's look at the last one. Is this sharing of your experience? Well, it doesn't say experience here, but then how you met your best friend. So it's experience, right? Now, why don't we take a look at another example? Right? This question is from SPM 2018. Describe a problem you once had while traveling. Explain what you did to solve the problem and what you have learned from the experience. Now, let's analyze. Is plot required to answer this question? While this question is very simplistic, but when you go traveling, there must be sequence of events. Mesti ada peristiwa-peristiwa yang berlaku, right? And then, is there a problem that needs a solution in this question? Well, it's very obvious. A problem you once had, and then how you solve the problem. And the last one, is this sharing of your experience? It clearly says from the experience there, right? So this one is pretty easy. Here we are at the second type of descriptive essay, which is descriptive expository. So what is expository? Expository means giving explanation or giving reasons. So how to identify expository, descriptive expository? Well, it has no plot. However, it doesn't mean that it can't have one. Get what I mean? It doesn't have plot. It doesn't have to have plot, but it can have one. Next, the keywords is explain why or give reasons. You usually find this in the question. And it asks you to list down points or ideas. Thus, expository. That's why it is called expository. And last one, it usually involves personal experience or preference. Meaning, preference meaning what is it that we like, right? So let's look at examples. Let's look at the first example. The question comes from SPM 2019. If you had the chance to be someone else, who would you choose to be? Explain what would be good about being that person and what might be difficult. So let's analyze. Do you need to explain or give reasons? Yes, you see there the word explain. And do you need to list down points or ideas? Obviously yes, because you need to explain. So you need to explain about what is good and what might be difficult. And does it involve your personal experience or preference? Yes, this one is preference. Who do you want to be? If you can be someone else. Let's go through with the second sample, the second example of descriptive expository. So this question is from SPM 2018. Imagine you went to a big sports event. Describe what you saw, what happened, and how you felt on that day. So let's go through with the analysis. Do you need to explain or give reasons? Well, in the question itself, you don't find the word explain. However, let's look at the next requirement. Do you need to list down points or ideas? So basically, when you need to list down points or ideas, you are explaining and giving reasons. So let's see what you saw, what happened, and how you felt on that day. Last but not least, does it involve your personal experience or preference? So you went to a big sports event, even though it says imagine, but then think of it as if it's really your experience going there. Okay, now remember I said earlier that for descriptive expository that it has no plot, but doesn't mean that you cannot, you cannot give it one, right? So like this question, there are two ways to approach it. You can simply write and list down what you saw and then what happened and how you felt on that day. For example, one paragraph is what you saw, and then a second paragraph, what happened, and another paragraph is your feelings. However, there is another way to approach such question like this. You can plan a plot, right? You can plan a plot, a sequence of events. For example, you are going to a big sports event, let's say a football match, right? So first you go buy the ticket, and then you go and watch the match. And let's say during when you buy ticket, something happened, right? So what you saw and then what happened, and then during the match, what happened in the match. Maybe you get lucky, there is a problem, or there is a problem, and then there will be solutions, right? And then how you felt throughout the experience. So you can give plot to descriptive expository. So here we've come to the last type of descriptive writing, which is descriptive factual. As the name suggests, the word factual means this question asks you to describe facts and issues. Easy? Let's look at how to identify such question. First, obviously it has no plot. This one strictly no plot, right? The keywords like expository is explain why or give reasons. And then it asks you to list down points or ideas as well. However, it is usually about an issue to be discussed. This is the difference between factual and expository. Let's look at the first example of descriptive factual. The question is taken from SPM 2018. Some people complain that they have no free time. Discuss the reasons why they might say this and suggest how they could use their time better. Now time for analysis. Do you need to explain or give reasons? Yes, discuss the reasons. So you need to explain the reasons and then suggest how. So you need to give ideas here. You need to explain. So do you need to list down points or ideas? Obviously, when you need to give reasons and suggest, right? So why they might say that they have no free time and how can they use their time better, right? So is there an issue to discuss? Obviously, the issue is some people complain that they have no free time. Okay, let's look at the second example for descriptive factual. The question is taken from SPM 2019. Which do you think is more important, money or health? Compare the two and decide if one is more important than the other. Give your reasons. So let's analyze. Do you need to explain or give reasons? Yes, you need to give reasons. And then do you need to list down points or ideas? Obviously, yes, because it says here compare the two. When you need to compare two things, you need to list down points about them. Okay, for example, here money and health. So you need to give, why money is important, reason number one, and then reason number two. And then why health is more important. So reason number one, reason number two. And then finally, is there an issue to discuss? The issue here is not money or health. The issue here is which do you think is more important, right? Which one is more important? Well, it is good to know the type of descriptive essay you are writing because it helps you to plan the body, the essay. There are other things which are important for descriptive writing. What is it? You need to be able to write good elaborations. And how can you do that? Don't worry, I have you covered. So when writing elaborations, use your senses to imagine, right? Senses in BM, you call it what? Pancha Indra. So what are the senses? There are 5 different senses, which are sight, right? What we can see, pandangan kita. Hearing, what we can hear, apa yang kita dengar. Smell, what we can smell, apa yang kita boleh hidu. Taste, apa yang kita boleh rasa. And touch, apa yang kita boleh. Okay, taste is rasa dengan lidah. Whether it is salty, sweet, delicious. And then touch is rasa melalui sentuhan. We can also include feelings, our emotions. In order to make your sentences more descriptive, your sentences do not have to be long. However, longer sentences are usually more descriptive. It's confusing, isn't it? Well, not really. Okay, so how can we make sentences more descriptive? Well, let's check it out. So the first tip is to use your senses. As I said earlier, we need to use our senses. So when describing something, think about what you can see, what you can hear, what you can taste, what you can smell, and how you feel or what you feel, right? But before you begin writing, you should brainstorm your ideas or draw a mind map. So why don't we try to describe hospital, right? A hospital. So when you go to a hospital, what can you see? You can see beds, you can see doctors, you can see nurses. And then you can hear the sound of machines and announcements, right? Announcements, pengumuman. And you can smell antiseptics and blood. And you may feel nervous, sad, or happy. So this is an example of how you can brainstorm your ideas by providing adjectives or examples. You don't need to write complete sentences yet. You are wasting your time by doing that, right? This is an example of brainstorm because some people prefer brainstorming. But what if you are a mind map person? Let's see. So with the same points we had earlier, if you prefer to draw mind maps, then you can do it like this. Alright? Yeah. Okay, you can do it like this. Now let's look at an example of paragraph using the words we managed to get from our senses earlier. I finally arrived at the hospital. When I entered the building, I could see doctors and nurses almost everywhere. Every now and then, I could hear announcement calling name of patients who were waiting to see a doctor. I went to the room where my mom was admitted. When I walked past the hallway, I could smell blood and antiseptics lingering in the air. I felt nervous as it was my first time entering such a big hospital, but I was also happy to see my mom. Now let's look at tip number 2, to use strong adjectives. What makes a descriptive essay more interesting and colorful is the use of adjectives to describe various things. Instead of using common adjectives, try replacing them with stronger adjectives to impress the examiner. For example, instead of using big or large, you can replace it with enormous. If something is big, besar, or if it is something luas, then you can use spacious instead. And then instead of hungry, very common, you can use starving, kebuluran, or famished, extremely hungry, right? So these are examples of strong adjectives. Shall we look at examples of paragraph? Now let's look at this paragraph. During the last school holiday, I went on a trip to Langkawi with my family. We stayed at a beautiful chalet by a beach. Our chalet was large and it had 3 rooms. My room was facing the beach. The scenery was beautiful. I was so hungry after playing ball with my sister. At dinner, we went to the nearby restaurant. We ate delicious seafood dishes. I was so happy. This sounds pretty plain and what most students would be able to write. Now, let's look at another example. So here I have improvised the previous example by adding stronger adjectives. Let's look. During the last school holiday, I went on a trip to Langkawi with my family. We stayed at a magnificent chalet. Sounds greater, right? By a beach. Our chalet was spacious and it had 3 rooms. My room was facing the beach. The scenery was fascinating. I was famished after playing ball with my sister. At dinner, we went to the nearby restaurant. We ate delectable seafood dishes. I was so delighted. This sounds more sophisticated and more interesting, isn't it? Right, you would want to read paragraphs like this. So you should be able to write paragraphs like this. As I said earlier, when stronger adjectives are used, your sentences will have better effects at creating more vivid images. The images are more realistic for the readers. However, do not simply throw in the words without understanding them. This is a sure killer for you, because when examiner see you use words but you don't even understand them, then it will become an error instead of merit. So what you can do is to choose a number of sophisticated adjectives and practice writing sentences with them. So where do you get sophisticated adjectives? Don't worry, I have you covered. You can find a link for descriptive words below in the description. Right? Click that link and download the document. So here we are at the third tip. Be specific. So another way of being descriptive is by being specific. Instead of using common nouns, be more specific by mentioning the name or brand of the nouns, which means you have to use proper nouns. You may also include examples to elaborate common nouns mentioned. Well, action is louder than words, right? So let's look at examples. Let's look at the earlier paragraph. This is what we had earlier. Can we be specific with any of the common nouns here? Okay, I give you 5 seconds to think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's see. During the last school holiday, I went on a trip to Langkawi with my family. We stayed at a magnificent chalet by a beach. It was called Chalet Bayou. You see, you give name to that chalet. Specific name. Our chalet was spacious and it had 3 rooms. My room was facing the beach. The scenery was fascinating with coconut trees and the sound of the waves. So, we have added example here. I was famished after playing beach volleyball. So, what kind of ball you play with your sister? So, beach volleyball. So, at dinner, we went to the nearby restaurant called Krusty Krab. Okay, you give name to that restaurant. We ate delectable seafood dishes such as salted scallops, grilled lobster, and spicy seafood tom yum. So you give examples. I was so delighted, right? So by looking at this example, how do you feel? This is more interesting to read compared to the earlier paragraph, isn't it? Right? So this is what I mean by being specific. Okay? So using all the three tips that I gave earlier will make your paragraphs better. So earlier we talked about using adjectives. So here let's look at how can you use descriptive words or phrases. Right? The most important part of descriptive writing is definitely descriptive words or phrases. You cannot describe without words. That's why vocab is very important. So descriptive words or phrases are what we call adjectives. Yes, I have mentioned this earlier. So to make your writing more interesting, make sure to use variety of adjectives. Bagi banyak pilihan adjective yang digunakan. So, what are the things that you need to describe? Most of the time, these are the things that you can describe. I have made a list. Let's see. The first one is people. When you describe people, you want to describe their physical features and characteristics. And then you can also describe things or places. And usually when you describe things or places, you describe the condition, whether, about the size and the atmosphere. Next, yes, this is very important because for anything that happens except for factual, you can always describe food and beverages. Who doesn't like food and beverages, right? You can describe taste and texture. And finally, feelings, emotions. It can be positive and it can be negative. So again, I have told you earlier, click the link below at in the description to find the handout. Now let's try to describe people. To describe people, here I have provide you with a template. Well, it doesn't have to be like this, but this is the easier way to describe people. How? You you mention the name or who is it, was a height or size. Okay, is it a man, a lady, a boy, or a girl, with description of the eyes or hair, and also description of face or the smile. Okay, this looks confusing, isn't it? This is just the formula. So let's look at the example. Emma Watson. Well, I like Emma Watson. She's pretty. So Emma Watson was a petite girl with straight hair and a dimpled smile. Instead of saying Emma Watson is beautiful, you can say Emma Watson was a petite girl with straight hair and a dimpled smile. Let's look at another example. Emma Watson was a petite young girl. You further elaborate, adding even more adjectives. So Emma Watson was a petite young girl. She had straight golden hair and a dimpled smile. Next, we describe things or places. The easier way is like this. The whatever it is was the size and the condition. The more complicated way is the same thing and then you give example at the end. Let's look at examples. All right. The hall was spacious, size, spacious, luas, and modern, condition, modern. So, let's further elaborate this. The hall was spacious and modern with rows of red chairs for participants and loud PA system. So when you describe this, something visual, rows of red chairs, people can imagine banyaknya kerusi-kerusi merah. And then loud PA system, what you can hear. Remember earlier about the 5 senses? Yes, very good. Here comes the part that I love the most. and you should love it too, which is to describe food and beverages. So when you describe food and beverages, you mention the texture of that food or drink and then how it tastes. Or you can add more information by mentioning how it is cooked. Let's look at example. So the spicy tom yum, right? So the food is tom yum and the texture is, the taste is spicy. It was lip smacking, right? The crispy fried chicken was tender and delectable. So even, reading this sentence, you can already imagine, the chicken, it's crispy. The fried chicken is crispy. And then, the flesh is so tender and delectable. Oh my God, I'm already, I'm already smacking my lips. Ha. Right, so let's go with the last one. Finally, we are going to describe feelings. So you can say, I felt, what is your feeling, and or but another feelings. So if you are talking about positive and positive, you use and. But if you describe something positive first and then negative, or negative first and then positive, basically you are describing two different and opposite feelings, then you use but. Or another way of doing it is the given situation, whatever the situation is, made me feel, and then you use the previous one. So look at example. I felt tired but happy. Or the birthday party made me feel surprised and happy. So you see earlier, tired is negative, happy is positive, so you use but. And then surprise, because this is in a good way, you are surprised by birthday party, obviously it's good. And then happy is also a positive feeling, so you use and, right? So this is how you write sentences, descriptive sentences using feelings. Whew, we are finally at the end of this video. So my final words of advice for you is, you must remember that writing descriptive sentences is easier said than done. You may have looked at the examples I gave in this video and think, alah, senang je, right? Easy lah, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, like ABC, senang saja. But no, it's not easy. It's easy when you see people do it, but for you to do it, it's not easy. So what can you do about it? To be able to write a good description, it requires a good amount of practice. Yes, I have never said it enough. Remember, dear viewers, practice makes perfect. I repeat, practice makes perfect. Keep on practicing and you'll get the hang of it very soon. So that's the end of this video. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, remember to give this video a like, comment how you feel about this video, and please share it with others if this video has been beneficial for you. So inshallah, if I have more time, I'll come up with other videos for other things for SPM, right? So yeah, that's all. See you again in my future videos. Bye.